And welcome out, Wildcat fans. This is the inaugural edition of the Coaches Show with head coach Ben McLaughlin. I'm your host, Doug Gann, and excited to be with you for another season of LCU football. First, let's go back and look at the offseason as you got here, and then we'll make our way up to where that starts out. So you got the call, I don't know, when was it? Take us a little bit through you getting to Louisiana Christian University this time.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Usually, coaching changes happen in programs following the season. So a new coach comes in around the Christmas holiday. You start that spring semester off, and you kind of lay the foundation with your new team coming up. Well, this one happened basically the end of February. So we kind of come in the very middle of that spring semester. Coach Maddox and his staff had signed a whole signing class. They had 2 months into off season, and so I come in right before we start spring football, and which I'm glad we got that, because with spring football we got to really install a lot of things and get things going on. But it definitely was a little bit weird in transition, because they were going on a certain cadence there with Coach Maddox in off season, right. And then we had to flip over and we had to start going on my cadence in. So it definitely has been a whirlwind, but I mean, man, it does feel like just yesterday, but I also feel like I've been here for almost a year here. It's with all the things that we've had to adjust to, and going from the spring to the summer to now our fall camp. So really fortunate to get to week one.
Well, while it is week one, too, let's just introduce folks that may not know Coach Ben McLaughlin. You and your wife both from school here, too. But you were a player back a couple of years ago. Yeah. Anyway, we'll go with it, too. Tell us about your ties and your tradition with LCU.
Yeah, I mean, every year that goes by, you realize how old I really am. I look at some of our highlights and from the mid 2000s, and it looks like it was in the 80s now because of the way the film looks. But yeah, so I came to school here and attended here and played from 2006, 2010. Coach Dennis Dunn, the head coach here, that was his first year, and 2006 was my first year, and so was able to play and fortunate enough to start for 4 years at quarterback, and we did a lot of good things. And I think Coach Dunn had the first winning season, and he strung off like 6 or 7 wins or better seasons in a row there. So was able to be kind of on the part of that of the program that got it really turned and really kind of put Louisiana College at the time on the map. And so graduated from here, got my master's from here. Was a graduate assistant for here for 2 years after I finished playing, and then left and went and coached junior college for 3 years, and then came back as the offensive coordinator for 4 years. So I like to talk to some parents and recruits. I mean, I've lived in the freshman dorm. I've lived in the nice senior on-campus apartments. Right. I've worked in the smallest office, partnered up with another GA, and then I'm at the biggest office at the end of the hall. So I've literally experienced every angle of this campus in every part of this program, from the lowest now as the head coach. And so I think when a place like Louisiana Christian University, it's very unique, like a lot of small colleges are. It's got its own, you've got to kind of know the flow and know the people. And I do feel like I'm a good fit because I've had a lot of the experiences here, and I know how the flow here works. And having one of your own come back, kind of like Coach Maddox was an alum. I just think in a place like this, it really goes a long way when it gets to how the campus and business office and all the different things you got to do to run a program. Well, I've got a lot of connections to people that work here, and so it really helps us out there.
One of the things that you skip over, and I know why you skip over it, because it's just that humbleness that you have. Banners hanging up under the stadium. You got a plaque inside the hallway there at the football facility that denotes your All-American year here too. You started 4 years. You're a pretty good one, and that All-American status, I believe, came in 2010.
Yeah, I mean, it's look. I love coaching football. It's the greatest sport on the planet Earth because it is the ultimate team sport. Right. I played a position that gets all the credit, and we'll get all the blame too if you lose. So fortunate enough, we won a lot of games in those years, and when you win games, the quarterback probably gets more credit than he deserves. So I was definitely able to hopefully bring some recognition on Louisiana Christian University with some of those, and was able to go and got a couple National Player of the Year, won 2 nominations and won one of the award, and got some All-Americans. And so, but it was like I told back then, those awards, I know they're individual, but they're not. Your offensive line, everybody has to play well for you to get an individual award. And so was very fortunate the coaching staff, Coach Dunn, all the things that went to those seasons and my years here. And so, but there's just dust on those trophies. Those trophies don't give us any wins now as a coach. So the experience definitely goes a long way, and I'm fortunate for the opportunity that I had here. But hopefully, I'm looking forward to coaching some guys that are going to get their own All-American.
I've got to believe, though, when the kids, the young men walk these hallways, and you're telling them something on the practice field, it sinks in when somebody that bleeds the orange and blue. I mean, you've been here throughout football. It has, and so I think that's got to bring a little merit to what you're telling these kids and helps them buy in a little bit more.
Sure, it does. I mean, some of the best coaches in football, Lou Holtz is the first example of didn't play college football. Right. You do not have to have college football play. You don't have to be an All-American to be a great coach. But for the guys that did play and then get in this profession, you've got to establish, at the end of the day, the players have to trust you. And there's an old saying that, they've got to know that you care before they care about what you know. So that's always first step. But I think once you've established that, and they trust you as a coach, then yes, when you tell them, and especially in that quarterback room, a position I played, or in that offensive room where I can, this is something that I did, I'd like to think that, especially, like I said, from a quarterback perspective, it does help them a little bit more. I can give them, because I was literally in that pocket just like they are. And so now I can't say the same thing to a defensive tackle because I didn't play that position. Right. But I do think there's some ways, and I do think, it's nice when you stand in front and say, guys, you're complaining about that dorm room. I stayed in that dorm room too. I had the same problems that you had. Right. We're going to get through this together. We're all in this together. And I do think that's some unique things that comes along with the experience of being here specifically at this place.
Come in with what you told me about 180 kids that were coming in. How do you pare that down? Because I think you guys take 65 of them on the road with you tomorrow.
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. I mean, like I said, Coach Maddox signed a class. And then Coach Maddox was on his way out in NAI in Division III and even Division II. When signing day doesn't really mean anything to us, so you still continue to recruit and sign kids in February and March. Right. And so, he signs his class, and then in the transition there, the 2 or 3 weeks that we didn't have a head coach, our staff was still recruiting, and so we got some guys committed in there, and then I come in, and then I go and find some guys that fit my system, and so we're almost like fitting two recruiting classes into one. So we definitely are oversigned this year, and we talked about how do you manage 180 kids out there, and there's no good way to do that. Right. With a small coaching staff that we have of 7 full-time coaches and a couple of GAs, and so we're obviously have a really tall task because there are a lot of really good players that are going to be in the 100 or so kids that aren't going to be on the bus. There's going to be some all-conference players in there. That's right. Maybe not this year, but at some point. And so we've definitely, our challenge is how do we keep investing into them? How do we keep developing them so that, because yes, we've got to win this year for the seniors and for the class, the 65 kids that are on that bus, but we've also got to build a program. Right. And we've got to continue to develop those guys, and it's a challenge. And so in the future, we're not going to, 140 is that perfect spot that we're going to try to be at. But right now, we've got 180, and we're going to do everything we can to give them all the love and develop them. And then in the spring, we'll really, then we'll really turn our focus to those young guys when it comes to figuring out who's going to be on next year's bus.
You made a comment in there, and you talked about building a program. A lot of people look at your football team. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between a football team and a football program. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I've talked a lot with Coach Maddox. When you're at small college football, the misconception out there is because at the end of the day, I've got 180 kids. For the most part, every kid on our team was probably one of, if not the best player on their high school team. Right. Just about everybody in there had some kind of all district, all region, all state honors. We don't recruit players that are bad high school football players, and so when you're trying to develop a program, getting kids to come in and understanding that they were just a 3-year starter, but now they didn't make the bus. It's an ego shot, and it hurts some kids. And so, how do you the wave that we fight is when people say they take our scholarship. In their minds, everybody, like they should, thinks, I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to be a freshman starter. And that's what everybody should think. But how do you go to where, well, if you've got a bunch of seniors and juniors, that freshman's probably not going to start. Right. How do you keep him? because the cycle is you've got a lot of seniors and juniors, you don't keep your freshmen. And so when they graduate, well, now we don't have a lot of seniors and juniors behind them, but now you start a bunch of freshmen. And then what happens? Well, you take some lumps, but then when they're juniors and seniors, they're really good. And then you got that cycle of we're really good for 2, and then we're not good for 2. And so
Coach, we talked about the 65-man roster that you'll travel with tomorrow out of 180. Tell me about some of those guys. You got your offense, defense. Had a look at them in the scrimmage game a couple of weeks ago. They were off last weekend, but you've pared it down to your 65 that have made the travel list. I know they're getting ready today. Tell us about some of those guys offensively. Then we'll talk defense. We'll talk special teams.
Yeah, I mean, both sides of the ball, we are very similar, and we're bringing about 6 guys back that were starters last year, and that's usually good. If you're ever returning more, 11 guys on the field, if you get 6 or more, you feel like we've got a good foundation.
Okay.
And we do offensively. I mean, a majority of our offensive line is coming back. We've got our two main backs are back, and then we added Dayton Cunningham as a transfer, so we kind of have a 3-man rotation there. I feel like we got 3 of the best backs we'll have in our conference. We've got Ethan Chrisman and we got Sammy Feaster coming back at receiver, and we've added a couple of transfers and a couple of really good freshmen in that group. And so we really feel like we've elevated everything. Like we talked earlier, the quarterback spot is the one that's going to get all the spotlight.
Right.
And with us, it's no different. We just graduated an All-American in Sal Palermo, and he was so proud of him as a guy that helped recruit him and get him here and coach him his true freshman year, seeing him develop and becoming the man that we thought he was going to be. But he leaves obviously a huge hole that we've got to fill offensively. And so I've been so proud of River Thompson, who has been his backup for 3 years. You talk about the transfer portal. I mean, this is a guy that did it the way, if you want to build a program, you've got to have guys like River that came, and Sal was a sophomore and he was a backup, and then he was a backup as a junior, and then he was a backup as a senior, and now he's got a chance.
Right.
And he's got 2 years of eligibility, but he's going to graduate in December. He's going to have some options there, but I'm so proud of him for staying because, yes, he has not had a college start yet, but there's a difference between a 21, 22-year-old redshirt junior and a true freshman, 18-year-old freshman.
That's
and he
right.
brings some of that maturity with him. He's had a great spring, a great summer, a great fall camp. And so everybody's going to look at that position because it's the quarterback position, but we're going to go, and our ceiling is going to match however he plays this year, and that's just the way every offense is usually.
As a quarterback, I think you can echo this too. Having the offensive line that's back, having the running back stable that you have on there, it doesn't put as much pressure on the quarterback. He doesn't have to go out there and win games. And your style of play, the style of play that's popular and that's out there, is quick, where it's a quarterback heavy offense. It's got to take some of the pressure off of him having that line in those backs.
Yeah, it does. He's got as good of a situation as any first-year starting quarterback would want to have, and so and like I said, when you go out and watch us practice and play, I mean, you wouldn't think he's a first-year starter. So now, when the lights come on in week 1, then I fully expect him to go out there and make some first-year starter mistakes, and we're going to grow with that. And so, at the end of the day, we're trying to go win another conference championship, and so we've got to get him ready for the big games. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. I know he's going to play well, and we're going to have patience with him because he's earned this. Right. And I'm really excited for him. I can't wait to see him go out there and play.
Well, he's got some good receivers on board as well. We saw a lot of those in that scrimmage too. How is his advancement going in that hurry-up style of offense that you'll run?
Yeah, no, it's the receiving room has been great. I mean, Ethan Chrisman is really one of our leaders in that group. He's been for sure 2-year starter, played a lot as a sophomore. Yeah, from Tioga High School. Dad's is an assistant coach over there, and so he has been a tremendous player for us. And we've got some more returners. You got Trace Williams is coming back. He didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but has really developed.
All right, hold on. Now we're getting into the show. This is the fun part of it. We've got through a lot of the all right, here's the host and the coach, all this. That block that Trace had in the scrimmage game, when I thought there was a flag that came out, you teach your receivers to block downfield. That was the epitome of it that sprung each.
For a year. He's been in the program. Obviously you come in, you would love to play as a freshman, and he didn't get a lot of playing time as a freshman, but he's been around and he's really developed and been super patient. And when you go in there and you see guys make those plays when they don't have the ball in their hand, it lets you know that they've bought into what you're trying to do offensively. And so as a staff, we've got so much trust into him. But yes, that's always fun, because at the end of the day, the way we play with our receivers, I mean, if you catch the ball outside, the only guys you got out there with you, the other buddies out there. And so that builds some trust in that receiving room as well, that, they got each other's backs. And so that like I said, that got EJ an extra like 10, 15 yards on his reception right there, just because of the effort that he played with.
And it springs that route too, because he's able to make the catch on the stop, which I guess he has his choice of what he does there, but was able to go in there. And then Trace comes back a little bit later and gets the touchdown reception out of it too. So.
We've almost played half of a season with these guys.
Right.
So it's even though we're not a veteran group in that room as a whole, they understand what we're trying to do, and so the chemistry has gotten a lot better, and they're a fun group to coach.
And you guys, your offensive philosophy, I think, has always been what it has been. You guys look to run a lot of plays, and you'll get up and down the field. What excitement do you see in that? You just love planning for a game, but tell me about your offense a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to be a lot of tempo, and we're going to run up, and we're going to play. And so at the end of the day, I think when kids enjoy that type of offense, it's fun to coach, because you can really focus on fundamentals. It's not so much about drawing up 100 plays that like you see some of the NFL do. It's, everybody's got their plays and you've got your formations, but just making sure that our kids are super confident in what we're doing and letting them know that the tempo is going to be our X factor, and it's how we're going to, how it's going to help us be successful. And so, and we're in the recruiting game here. I think players in high school, they love to play for that. Right. Offensive players love to play for that. When you play more plays, that's more people that get their pants dirty. You're talking about you're going to have more twos that are going to be playing because of that. So I just think it really fits into what we need to do in this state of Louisiana. It's where you can throw a rock and you can hit a 5'10", 5'11" receiver that is super fast. It can catch the football.
Right.
And so we've got to make sure, in my opinion, that our offense fits what our state's going to produce for us. And I think it's going to be, what we do offensively fits the kind of guys that are going to slip through the Division I cracks, that are looking for homes, and they can come to us and be great players.
Well, that's exciting. So defensively, defensive side of the ball too. Now, they'll be out there a lot more because your offense does go up and down the field on there too. So what do you look at defensively? What's your defense looking like this year?
Coach Andrus is returning defensive coordinator, and so he brings a lot of what Coach Maddox. Coach Maddox was a heavy defensive-minded head coach, and so the defense that he runs is one that we keep. That's what I loved about keeping him and some of that staff together, is that continuity, because they were very, very good defensively last year, and so able to keep even though, obviously me coming in as an offensive head coach, even though Coach Feaster in the offense last year was amazing, right. But when you come in as an offensive head coach, you've got a philosophy that you've got to run. But on defense, I want to keep that as consistent as possible, and I think it's created a lot of confidence in those guys, because they can just build on what they did last year. But Coach Andrus is putting his own flavor to it as well. But again, we've got about 6 guys that are coming back on defense. Obviously Logan Brimmer on the defensive end kind of highlights that, kind of returning defensive player of the year in the conference. Yeah. Multiple all-conference guy. De facto leader, especially of our defense, but of our whole team. And so having him back, and then Jordan Oglesby at the other defensive end that got a lot of reps last year, and so our defensive ends are we feel really good about that. When you're looking at our linebackers, we definitely lost Bubba Reed, right. And he was a great player, but we feel like we've got a lot of guys that got some playing time last year. So even though you hate losing a starter like that, there was it wasn't like a quarterback where the backup didn't get any reps. The other guys that are playing now, they've played football right. for us. So we feel like we can, that group can keep progressing from where they were. We've got a lot of returners at safety, and, getting Pop McGee back was a huge deal at cover corner. So we have some fresh faces in there, but we feel confident that the guys that were there were also played for us last year, so they can build on that. And so, if on offense, if the spotlight for us was on quarterback about who's on defense, our big losses was on the interior defensive line. Right. Big Will and LaKeelan, and we had about 3 guys that rotate on the inside that all graduated, and so now we got to 3 or 4 more guys are going to rotate here. And so a lot of those guys got, like, Ted Jamison got some reps last year, and Amar Lewis, and we got to transfer in Michael Sampson. So we feel like we've got the personnel to be good there, but just like the quarterback, not very many of them have shown it yet on game film. So that game one for us, we're going to be really looking at those guys and making sure that we're getting what we need from that interior D line. But once they've had a great fall camp, and I've got a lot of confidence in them.
Wildcat fans, if you ever wondered about the passion that head coach Ben McLaughlin has for this team, you hear the use of the word we and us, and we return things from last year. A lot of coaches in their first year would have to be looking at notes. Coach, you've been around, you follow the program so well. Tell me about the development of Logan, how he's been. It seems like he's been here for 10 years, the way that he's progressed, and he's just been harassing quarterbacks and making chaos along the defensive side of the football. Tell me a little bit about what you see in him as a leader.
I was actually talking to him this morning walking back from practice. When he came in, this group of huge seniors right here, whether it's the super senior COVIDs like him or the regular seniors that are also. So our senior class, we're going to have about 24, 25 guys go through senior day, because you got the super seniors and your traditional seniors, and then you got your guys that are graduating but redshirted. And so I was talking to him about when he came in with Coach Maddox's early years. We didn't have a lot of depth.
Right.
So he came on the team, and as a freshman, he was out there. And you see the maturation of him and the plays that he got to play in as a freshman, then as a starter, as a sophomore, and on through. That has helped him develop into who he is today. And so, obviously, that you go back and look at his freshman year. They took some lumps, like we all, but those lumps and some of those losses, and I'm sure he got it there as a freshman and probably got overwhelmed a little bit, but that is what's molded him into the guy he is today. And what I'm more proud about is when I love sending him to interviews because he's so articulate. Right. He's so professional. He understands. He wants, he's thinking he may even go to law school. He's a high character kid that has done it the right way. He's a kid that when he leaves, you'll see his poster up because you can be proud that, yes, look at what he did on the field, but look at what he also did in the class. And so guys like him is the ones that, guys like him and like Sal and those people, you're so proud of them because they're a true student athlete in all forms of the shape of how the player and the person is. And so he's been awesome, and I hate that I only got him for 1 year.
I think the importance of having somebody like that for these freshmen that come in, for these younger guys, because you've talked so much, and we've talked off the air, and we've talked a lot about it's not just about getting a athlete out of here. It's about these young men that are coming. It's the first time, and they've been that big fish in a pond, and now they're not on the bus. They're going home for the weekend and watching the game. What role does a Logan play in that, of bringing these kids up?
All those guys do. I try to talk to those seniors in private and just tell them, because we always talk about the standard, and you got to hold the standard, and there's a lot of that, but I tell them, guys, you've got to go back and love those kids too. Yeah. You know how homesick you were that freshman year. So, there's a lot of times as coaches, we grind on them and we hold them, and they are 1 minute late, and now they're bear crawling for 300 yards or whatever it is. I was like, hold them to the standard, but, also you be the good cop sometimes to our bad cop. Go in there and say, man, I remember when I was a freshman, I got it too, just like you did. And they do a great job of doing that for us. So that senior class helping, now there's going to be times where they got to get into them. If a freshman's not giving effort, not hitting the standard, that works too. But I told them they're great leaders, understand and know that not everybody's the same, and you've got to feel people out, and some people need more than others. And so he's one of those that does a great job of understanding that, and along with a lot of the other guys that we have in that senior class. Well, there you have it. Looking forward to watching all of those older guys throughout the season. Now, we'll talk about special teams some too, and we want to focus on extra points and kickoffs and not really the punt game, but we'll bring that up too in this as well. But no, realistically, your special teams, what do you see in that group? Yeah, I know we talked in a previous interview about how many different people kicked an extra point last year, and it was kind of the good thing is this Levi Hillborn is the returning kicker. He did kick some last year, and he's doing it all. So that'll be easy for you as a play-by-play guy. If we send a special teams unit out, he's going to be the kicker, the kickoff specialist, the punter. He's going to be doing all that. That makes it great. Yep. So, we've got some other guys that we're working in as well, and some different things, and some backups and guys that may end up, that may change down the role as people develop. But he's coming back. He's a returner. He's been here. He's actually from the same city that our quarterback River Thompson's from, and so But I'm looking forward to Levi. Anytime you're amongst, I can say this from a quarterback standpoint. They always say, what's the old adage there? If you've got two quarterbacks, you don't have any. If we're trotting out there 2 or 3 or 4 different kickers, it probably means that we don't have confidence that somebody can go out there. So I told him, Levi, this is your job.
Right.
This is your job. We're gonna live and die with you. We're gonna roll with you, and I think he's taken that and it's built his confidence. And so he's the guy, and he's gonna go out there and kick a lot of good field goals and PATs, and kickoffs are super important. And so making sure we do that correctly.
Well, looking forward to it. All right, so all of that's wrapped up. We've got a good look at the offense. We've got a good look at the defense. We've got a look at the special teams. You got St. Thomas this weekend, first game of the season on there. And this is not one of those games where it's you're getting a cupcake and they're coming in. This is a big-time potential playoff matchup game out of this. What do you think going into the St. Thomas game?
Yeah, when Coach Maddox and Coach Rochelle, their head football coach, when they did this, it's in NAI, there's so many different conferences. If you win the conference, you get an automatic bid. If you don't win the conference, there's only so many wild cards at larges out there. And there's so much, it's all subjective because you don't play a lot of common opponents. So you've got a group of people that's just picking. And so by playing other NAI-specific opponents that are highly ranked, that's what, you go down there, whether they call it a quality win or a quality loss. I've seen people take the 3-loss team that went and played 2 good NAI opponents and took quality losses over a 9-1 team that didn't win their conference, but they won 2 or 3 games against, smaller schools that they didn't consider a quality loss. And so that's the whole deal in here is where, we want to compete here, but it's going to be it's really good for us to see where we are right now.
Well, you talk about playing games like this, too. There's a 3-way tie atop the Sooner Athletic Conference last year, and one of those teams don't make the playoffs. Right. So you've got to load it up with that. What do you see? And we've talked before. We did a season preview of all of this, too. We know you like to get up and down the field. They're going to want to get up and down the field as well. This is one of those games that could last about 4 hours and get about 150 plays out of each of you. What are you game plan going into a St. Thomas?
Yeah, they're in a very similar boat to us. They had a great season last year. Made the playoffs. Should have won their playoff game there. It came down to the very, very end. And they are returning about half their players, and they're missing about half their players. And so this game is ultimately going to come down to, the guys that are their first-year starters, which ones can actually fill the holes of what the guys that left them the best.
Right.
Can our quarterback fill Sal's hole? Can our D tackles? Can their guys? And so they definitely, when you go look at their depth chart, they've got some guys that we can circle. Man, that guy played last year. He was a good player. Right. And then you got their guys like, I don't know. We don't have any film on this guy. He didn't play last year, or maybe he was a transfer. And so that first quarter is going to be a lot of feeling out from both teams of figuring out where they are, who they are. Now with your sideline replay, we're all going to be over there with the iPads figuring out, all right, who's out there, where are they lined up, because we don't have any film on each other. Right. They know that we have a different offensive, a different scheme of offense, and even though we have the same defensive coordinator, they know there's going to be some differences there, and same thing, they've got a new defensive coordinator. But they've got some of the same players, and so it's just there's a lot of unknowns when it comes. When week 1 in high school, they exchange the jamboree, they exchange the scrimmage.
Right now,
yeah, you got film. It's week 1, but we got no film.
Right.
So you're hoping that your base offense and your base defense can go in there and you can be better fundamentally against them, and then you just adjust on the go when you see what they're going to play in.
Well, these are going to be 2 fun base offenses going after each other. Should be a lot of fun. We don't give a lot of stock to preseason rankings at all, but you guys do land in the top 25 on there. I don't know how they figure things. I saw a poll yesterday on the top 300 high school teams in the country. How you figure that, I don't know at all. But for those that are following along, this is the top 25 matchup, and this is something that LC's not been able to talk about, I don't know when, is that they're starting the season with both teams ranked in the top 25 doing battle with each other.
Yeah, like I said, the preseason rankings really is a validation and a credit to what happened last year.
Right.
It's a credit to Coach Maddox and the season that they had. You know, you look at Michigan's roster. Should they be number 9? They just won the national championship. Look at how many people they lost. They're not the 9th ranked team, but they get that ranking because of the credibility of what they did last year. And so, yeah, we don't put any stock into that, but what it's nice is it brings recognition, it brings eyes that don't normally know who Louisiana Christian University is. It gets them looking at us, and so, and it gets, it helps in recruiting. It helps when you're trying to reach out and get people to understand who we are and what we're about. And so we're not going to back down from it. We're going to walk in there thing as if we're a top, just because we believe we're a top 25. But the challenge is we've got to prove that ranking. It doesn't mean anything until we go put it on tape in 2024.
But what do you look for in these first 2 or 3 games?
Yeah. We talked yesterday to the team about, adversity. And, you're looking at teams like Florida State, who goes 13-0 last year and come in with national championship aspirations. And before we've even played our first game, they're 0-2.
Right.
And I'm like, we're about to go into the hardest opening 2 games in the history of Louisiana Christian University football. Right. Whether we come out of this thing 2-0, 1-1, 0-2, you better believe there will be adversity in those games. I'm really looking forward to. Last year, we won a lot of close ball games. We didn't have, they fought through and they won those, but, only Ottawa is really the only game that they came home with a loss during the season.
That's right.
And so, whether it's, how do we handle adversity from the first drive, from the first quarter, from the first game, from the second game? Because at the end of the day, when Langston comes here week 3 and conference starts, regardless if we're 2-0, that doesn't matter.
That's right.
If you're 0-2, that doesn't matter. And so getting them understanding that we're going to win you don't win games, you win plays. And you got to keep a short-term memory and keep, every 7 seconds and go. And if we can do that, we'll have a really good chance of being 2-0. You'll have a really good chance when Langston comes in of trying to repeat his conference championship. But if we can't do that, then it goes the other way. So that's our challenge to our guys, is handling adversity.
If that doesn't get you excited about Wildcat football that incidentally starts in about 3 days, I don't know what will. Join us each Wednesday evening. We'll be right here. We'll talk next week about the game down in Miami. We'll talk about the upcoming one that's in Houston. We'll celebrate how that big victory came about on Saturday. See, you gotta speak it on there.
Yeah, speaking in existence. I'm with you.
And we're going to be here with Coach Ben McLaughlin all season long, and we'll do it here thanks to our friends at the Convergence Media Department here on the campus of LCU. I am Doug Gann with 446 Sports, and we'll see you next week.